Hello and welcome, I am Thomas Porteus and you are watching The World Report. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. South Korea's main opposition party is set to vote for a motion to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol for the second time. This comes after his brief declaration of martial law last week. 2 days after the fall of Assad's regime in Syria, new Syrian PM Mohammed al-Bashir calls for stability and calm. The rebel group have seized control over the whole of Syria. Sudan airstrike on a marketplace in western region of Darfur claims over 100 lives. Emergency lawyers' rights group describes the attack as a horrific massacre. President Volodymyr Zelensky urges Ukraine's allies to provide 10 to 12 Patriot air defense systems. He's further asked allies to use Russian funds to pay more for Patriot missile systems. 26-year-old suspect in United Health CEO Brian's murder briefly struggled with officers and shouted angrily while being escorted into a Pennsylvania courthouse. This comes after his arrest yesterday, which put an end to the widespread manhunt. China's government warns Taiwan, says takes necessary measures to defend the country's sovereignty. It has also emphasized on action against separatist activities. Mexican Congressman Benito shot dead in coastal Veracruz. This marks another death in an outbreak of political violence in the country. Former Defense Minister Kim Jong-un has reportedly attempted to take his own life while in custody. This comes amid a growing political crisis following President Yoon Suk-yeol's brief declaration of martial law. Meanwhile, South Korean police have raided the presidential office as part of an expanding investigation into the controversial move that has sparked widespread public anger. Let's take a look at the report.
Police in South Korea have raided the presidential office in Seoul, following President Yoon Suk-yeol's abortive attempt to impose martial law last week. The raids are the latest development in what has been a tumultuous week in South Korean politics. President Yoon, who has stayed in office despite an impeachment vote and multiple calls for him to step down, is facing multiple investigations from various branches of government on charges of insurrection and treason. Meanwhile, the country's ex-defense minister Kim Jong-un, who took responsibility for the martial law declaration, attempted suicide while in detention on Tuesday night, an official said. Kim is currently being kept in a guarding room and has no current health issues, the ministry told Parliament. He was arrested on Sunday. Many officials close to Yoon have also resigned in the wake of the short-lived martial law declaration. The country is now in a state of political flux. Ruling party lawmakers banded to boycott a vote to impeach Yoon as president after he agreed to shorten his term and not get involved in foreign and domestic affairs. South Korea's main opposition party is set to put to a vote a motion to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol over his brief declaration of martial law this Saturday, its spokesperson said. It's unclear what, if any, authority Yoon now has, and protesters are still on the streets calling for him to stand down. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some news updates from North America. President-elect Donald Trump has nominated Kimberly Guilfoyle, former Fox News president and fiancée of his son, Donald Trump Jr., as US ambassador to Greece. Trump praised her ability to strengthen US-Greece relations. Guilfoyle, who has no diplomatic experience but served as a campaign surrogate, awaits Senate confirmation. The nomination continues Trump's pattern of appointing loyalists and family members to key positions. A fast-moving wildfire in Malibu, California has scorched over 2,200 acres, fueled by strong Santa Ana winds and low humidity. The Franklin fire erupted overnight, endangering homes and businesses in the celebrity-filled area. Pepperdine University cancelled classes as smokes and flames surrounded parts of the campus. Firefighters are battling to contain the blaze as evacuation efforts continue. Experts have said that President-elect Donald Trump's mass deportation plan could devastate the US economy and harm millions. The proposal to expel 13 million undocumented immigrants may cost $1 trillion, slash GDP by up to 6.8%, and disrupt key industries. Critics warn the move would also undermine societal trust and family unity. Trump defends the plan as essential for border security. President Joe Biden and G7 leaders will meet virtually on Friday to discuss Syria's turmoil and Russia's war in Ukraine. This follows the ousting of Bashar al-Assad by Islamist-led rebels. The US has called for an inclusive political process in Syria. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has pledged support for a transparent, representative government. Russia's role looms large in both crises. The US is offering a $10 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Guan Tanfeng, a Chinese man accused of hacking firewalls and stealing data globally. Guan, believed to be in Sichuan, China, and worked for Sichuan Silence Information Technology, which is now sanctioned. The US states his actions targeted 81,000 devices worldwide, including critical US infrastructure. China condemned the US sanctions, calling them an unjust attack on Chinese entities. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken will visit Jordan and Turkey this week for talks on Syria, following the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. Blinken will meet officials in Aqaba and Ankara, reaffirming US support for Syrian-led transition into a representative government. The Israeli army has claimed that they have destroyed 80% of Assad's military capabilities. They are also expanding their occupation into the Syrian Golan Heights. Meanwhile, the new Prime Minister seeks to establish peace in the country. Here is the full report.
The Israeli army claimed to have destroyed 80% of Bashar al-Assad's military capabilities in a recent operation. Over 48 hours, 350 Israeli warplanes targeted key infrastructure, including aircraft, helicopters, and air defense systems. Named Bashan Arrow, the operation is part of Israel's alleged strategy to weaken Assad's defenses and control crucial buffer zones in southern Syria. In conjunction with this military operation, Israel expanded its occupation of the Syrian Golan Heights, seizing a UN-supervised demilitarized buffer zone just hours after the Assad regime's collapse. Citizens of Golan Heights remain concerned.
لأنه إسرائيل تستغل الفرصة اليوم من أجل أن تخرق اتفاق الهدنة لعام 1974 قامت بالاستيلاء على المنطقة العازلة، وهذا يناقض كل الأعراف الدولية. وطبعا إسرائيل لا تريد الخير لسوريا.
Amidst the chaos, Syria's new transitional government, led by Mohammed al-Bashir, seeks to establish stability after Assad's ousting. Even the World Health Organization showed hope.
The appointment in the last few hours of transitional government in the Syrian Arab Republic is bringing new hope to a country that has suffered so much.
Al-Bashir, who had previously headed the rebel administration in northwest Syria, is now tasked with governing the country until 2025, under the direction of the Islamist militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and its allies. Meanwhile, Syrian rebels have taken control of the eastern city of Deir Ezzor, with the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights confirming that Kurdish forces have withdrawn from the area. With both military and political changes unfolding simultaneously, the road to peace in Syria remains fraught with challenges. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some news updates from Europe. France began withdrawing its military forces from Chad. It flew out its 2 Mirage fighter jets. Chad is the former French colony in Central Africa. It withdrew its defense cooperation agreement with Paris last month. Chad played a crucial role in regional counterterrorism efforts. Once a major French military hub, Chad follows Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso in ousting French troops. 5 European countries, including the UK, France and Germany, pledged to strengthen anti-trafficking efforts. Berlin and London signed a bilateral agreement to handle the growing concerns about illegal immigration. Nearly 34,000 undocumented immigrants crossed the Channel into the UK in 2024. The agreement involves sharing intelligence, targeting the financial flows of smuggling networks, and removing online content that promotes illegal smuggling. Thousands of pro-European protests in Georgia continued their rallies for the 13th day. Security forces have used tear gas and water cannons. Over 400 people have been arrested amid ongoing unrest. The European Union warned that can take action against the government for using force against the protesters. French President Emmanuel Macron called for the release of the detainees. French President Emmanuel Macron plans to appoint a new Prime Minister within 48 hours. He aims to end the political deadlock after the ousting of the former PM Michel Barnier. Macron invited leaders from many parties except far-right National Rally and the hard-left France Unbowed. Caretaker ministers are clarifying France's finances for 2025. This follows as the previous government collapsed over budget cuts. Pope Francis called for respect between religions in Syria. He urged for peace and security following the overthrow of President Bashar al-Assad. Speaking to his weekly audience, he expressed hope for a political solution that fosters stability and unity without further conflict. Syria's new transitional Prime Minister, Mohammed al-Bashir, also called for stability and calm in the country. It has been over a year since the outbreak of the civil war in Sudan. Since then, over 150,000 people have been killed and over 11 million people have been displaced. Recent developments have seen a reported strike where over 100 people were killed by Sudan's military. Let's take a look at the report.
Another day of brutal violence in Sudan, a conflict that has now been ongoing for more than a year. Yesterday, Sudan's military has been accused of carrying out an airstrike on a marketplace in the western region of Darfur, in which more than 100 people were reportedly killed. The Emergency Lawyers' Rights Group described the bombing in Kapkabia town on Monday, the weekly market day, as a horrific massacre. According to the Emergency Lawyers Group, the strike happened as residents from nearby villages came to shop in Kapkabia, a town that lies around 180 kilometers from the besieged city of Darfur. Clashes have intensified in different parts of Sudan in recent weeks between the army and its former ally, the Parliamentary Rapid Support Forces. Both sides deny carrying out war crimes during their 19-month power struggle that has caused the world's biggest humanitarian crisis and forced more than 11 million people from their homes. A report published in November stated that the number of people dying in this conflict is significantly higher than previously reported. It suggested that more than 150,000 people have died as a result of the conflict. These deaths are not only due to fighting but also from the collapse of the health system, where millions of Sudanese people are forced to live in unhygienic and lawless conditions.
Disease outbreaks, including cholera, malaria, dengue, and measles with the risk of mpox, multiple reported incidents of conflict-related sexual violence, and the near collapse of much of the country's health system, an estimated 70 to 80% of the health facilities not fully functioning across the country.
Campaign group Human Rights Watch has appealed to the United Nations and African Union to urgently deploy troops to Sudan and protect civilians. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some updates from the Indo-Pacific region. A powerful gas explosion rocked a high-rise residential building in Shenzhen, China on Wednesday. The blast, which occurred on the 28th floor, triggered a fire and sent flames billowing from the building's exterior. Rescue teams responded quickly, deploying 16 fire trucks and 80 personnel. At least one person fell from the building and emergency crews rushed them to a hospital. The area is known for housing major companies like Tencent, and investigations into the explosion's cause are ongoing. Philippine Vice President Sara Duterte skipped questioning over alleged threats against President Marcos. She claimed to expect more legal challenges and possible removal from office. Duterte's comments about hiring a hitman have sparked an investigation. Marcos called her remarks reckless. Duterte faces impeachment complaints for alleged corruption. The probe continues as she denies the accusations. Authorities vow a fair investigation despite her absence. Khalil Rahan Haqqani, Afghanistan's acting minister for refugees, has died in a blast in Kabul. His nephew, Anas Haqqani, confirmed the death on Wednesday. He had been a senior leader in the Haqqani network, a rebel faction responsible for major attacks during the 20-year war. He joined the Taliban's interim government after the US withdrawal in 2021. The exact details of the explosion are still unclear. A car was set alight and 2 properties were vandalised with anti-Israel messages in Sydney. This follows a similar attack on a synagogue in Melbourne under investigation as terrorism. Prime Minister Albanese called the attack an outrage, saying it was an attack on Jews. 2 suspects wearing dark clothing were seen near the fire. Police say the act was intended to incite hate. This comes amid rising anti-Semitic incidents in Australia since the October 7th Hamas attack. Thailand's cabinet approved debt relief measures, including interest suspensions and reduced payments, to ease the household debt burden. Prime Minister Pengton Tan Shinawatra stated the measures will help retail borrowers and small businesses with a household debt to GDP ratio of 89.6. The country faces a significant debt challenge amounting to 16.3 trillion baht. Thailand's finance minister announced reduced contributions from banks to the Financial Institutions Development Fund to support debtors. Around 1.9 million borrowers with 890 billion baht in debt will benefit from the 3-year relief. The World Bank has reported that Myanmar's economy is set to shrink by 1% this fiscal year. This comes after downgrading its earlier 1% growth projection. Challenges include severe flooding from Typhoon Yagi, escalating armed conflict and economic sanctions following the 2021 military coup. Manufacturing, services and agriculture are struggling due to inflation, supply chain issues and electricity shortages. Food insecurity now affects 25% of the population, with inflation averaging 26%. Civil war has displaced 3.5 million people, further straining livelihoods and trade. The junta's grip on the power faces mounting resistance, heightening economic uncertainty. President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for more Patriot air defense systems from Western allies to help Ukraine fully defend its skies. The US has also pledged $20 billion in aid to Ukraine. Russia has also commented on war negotiation. Here is a report.
Amid the escalations between Russia and Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky has now said, urging the Western allies not to let the systems gather dust. He said that Ukraine would be able to completely defend its skies if it received around a dozen more Patriot air defense systems from Western allies. His plea came after a Russian missile killed at least 4 people and injured 20 more in the southeastern city of Zaporizhzhia.
Вже переговорив з головкомом про те, що потрібно, щоб дати більше безпеки нашим містам. І говоримо з усіма партнерами про додаткові системи ППО. Ми зараз маємо недостатньо систем, щоб захистити нашу країну від російських ракет.
The US, on the other hand, has given $20 billion to Ukraine, funded by the profits of seized Russian assets. The economic support forms a significant part of a $50 billion package agreed by G7 member nations announced in June. In another development, an armored vehicle belonging to the United Nations atomic watchdog was hit by a drone strike on its way to inspect a Ukrainian nuclear power plant on Tuesday.
I condemn in the most firm terms this attack on the IAEA staff. We call once again, as we have done it before, for the utmost restraint. I have said in the past that attacking a nuclear power plant is a no-go. Attacking those who care for the nuclear safety and security of these plants is even more unacceptable.
The strike took place as the vehicle traveled in a convoy to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to safeguard the facility amid fears it could be caught in the crossfire of Russia's war on Ukraine. Russia has said the Ukraine war will continue until it meets its aims, either on the battlefield or via negotiations. President Putin wants Ukraine to fully pull out of 4 eastern regions it claims as its own, but Kyiv rejects that as a form of surrender. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some updates from the business world. European shares lost ground on Wednesday, mirroring a drop in Asian stock markets. Investors cautiously awaited US inflation data, which is expected to put the Federal Reserve on course to cut rates again. European shares fell 0.2%, easing further away from a 7-week high it touched on Monday. It was weighed down by a series of downbeat corporate results. A national security review of Nippon's Steel $15 billion bid for US steel is ongoing. The White House said on Tuesday that President Joe Biden will see what it yields before making a decision on whether to block the deal. The statement comes after shares of US steel tumbled more than 10% on Tuesday afternoon. This comes after a report suggested the deal would be killed off in a short order. Australia's central bank is ready to respond with force should potential US tariffs hit global trade and threaten growth at home. In a speech in Sydney, Reserve Bank of Australia Deputy Governor Andrew Hauser said that the direct impact of any US tariffs on Australia is likely to be limited. The country, unlike others, runs a trade deficit with the world's largest economy. Labour unions at major Japanese auto manufacturers will seek monthly pay hikes of 12,000 yen or more in annual spring wage negotiations next year. This is the first time in 7 years that the Confederation of Japan Automobile Workers Unions, has presented a specific target for the labour talks. The group decided to revive the actual target to give guidance that smaller unions can leverage in their negotiations. German carmaker Mercedes-Benz will reshuffle its management board with 4 new members. The changes are due to take effect in 2025. Olaf Schick, current Chief Financial Officer of car parts maker Continental, is set to join Mercedes-Benz management board starting October 1st, 2025. Coffee drinkers may soon see their morning treat get more expensive. The price of coffee on international commodity markets has hit its highest level on record. On Tuesday, the price for Arabica beans, which account for most global production, topped $3.44 a pound, having jumped more than 80% this year. The cost of Robusta beans, meanwhile, hit a fresh high in September. China intensifies its military activity around Taiwan with over 50 warplanes and a record naval deployment, raising regional tensions. Beijing warns it will take necessary measures to defend its sovereignty, while Taipei calls out provocative acts. Here is the full report.
Tensions rise in the Taiwan Strait as China ramps up military drills near Taiwan. Over the past 24 hours, Taipei reported 53 warplanes and 11 Navy vessels operating around the island, along with civilian ships from China's Coast Guard.
我们是以目前这一次的这个规模跟前面这4次来去做比较，是最大的，是相当大的。
China's Taiwan Affairs Office issued a sharp warning, labeling Taipei's government a separatist force and vowing to take necessary measures to defend sovereignty. Beijing's actions come amid speculation of a message aimed at US President-elect Donald Trump's incoming administration.
破坏台海和平稳定的是台独分裂活动和外部势力的纵容支持。坚持一个中国原则是维护台海和平稳定的关键所在。中国将坚定捍卫国家主权和领土完整。至于你提到红线，台湾问题是中美关系中第一条不可逾越的红线，这是我们的一贯立场。
A map released by Taiwan shows China reserving 7 temporary airspace zones for its drills, 2 of which directly face Taiwan near China's Fujian province. Taipei, however, sees these actions as a deliberate attempt to destabilize the region. Presidential Office spokesperson Karen Kuo called the military activities a blatant disruption of regional stability and urged Beijing to immediately halt its provocations. This week, Taiwan went on high alert as China's Navy launched its largest maritime mobilization in nearly 3 decades. Taiwan's defense ministry highlights an unusual escalation in airspace activity, with 47 aircraft spotted in just 1 day.
又少一点，以前台湾的游客比较多，从赖清德上台以来，这游客就少了。我们去大陆去台湾也少，台湾过来也少。
The standoff between Beijing and Taipei intensifies, raising questions about the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. With both sides standing their ground, the region watches closely as these tensions unfold. Bureau Report, NewsX.
And that is all we have time for. We will be back soon with more news updates from across the world.